Here's a psychological truth you're probably not ready for. If you prefer staying home instead of going out, it's not laziness. It's your brain protecting you from something most people will never understand. And here's the most uncomfortable part. The people calling you antisocial have absolutely no idea what's really happening inside your mind. By the end of this video, I'm going to reveal the hidden psychological mechanisms that make your home feel like a fortress, why social situations drain you in ways that have nothing to do with hating people, and the one critical difference between healthy solitude and destructive isolation that could change your entire life. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever canceled plans at the last minute and felt both guilty and relieved at the same time? Have you ever spent an entire weekend alone and felt more energized than after a night out with friends? If you're nodding right now, keep watching, because what I'm about to share will finally make you feel understood. Part 1, the neuroscience of social exhaustion. Let's start with something most people completely misunderstand: introversion versus social exhaustion. These are not the same thing, and confusing them could be costing you years of self-awareness. Being introverted doesn't mean you hate people. It doesn't mean you're shy, awkward, or antisocial. What it actually means is that your brain processes social information differently than an extrovert's brain does. And here's where it gets fascinating. Research from neuroscience shows that introverts have higher baseline cortical arousal. In simple terms, your brain is already operating at a higher level of stimulation internally. When you add external stimulation, conversations, music, crowds, social dynamics, your brain reaches overload much faster than an extrovert's brain would. Think of it like this. Extroverts start their day at a 3 out of 10 in terms of stimulation. They need external input to reach their optimal 7 or 8. But you start at a 6 or 7. Adding more input pushes you past your threshold into the red zone. Anxiety, exhaustion, overwhelm. Every conversation requires your brain to process micro-expressions, tone changes, subtext, body language, social hierarchies, and unspoken rules. You're not just listening to words, you're running a complex social algorithm in real time. And that takes enormous mental energy. This is why a 2-hour dinner party can leave you feeling like you've run a marathon, while an extrovert feels energized and wants to keep going. It's not weakness, it's neurology. But here's the part nobody talks about. This processing depth is also your superpower. You notice things others miss. You read between the lines. You understand emotional nuance. The cost is that you can't do it endlessly without burning out. Part 2. Your home as an emotional sanctuary. Now let's talk about why your home feels so different from anywhere else. Psychologically, your home becomes what's called an anchor of safety. Your brain has associated this space with reduced threat, reduced performance pressure, and reduced social judgment. When you're home, you're not performing. You're not managing someone else's perception of you. You're not navigating social landmines or reading the room. You can just exist without the exhausting labor of social presentation. This is what psychologists call impression management, and most people don't realize how much energy it consumes. Every time you're in public, part of your brain is monitoring. Am I saying the right thing? Do I look okay? Are they enjoying this conversation? Am I being too much or not enough? At home, that system shuts off. Your nervous system can finally downshift. Your shoulders drop. Your jaw unclenches. Your breathing deepens. This isn't laziness. This is your body finally feeling safe enough to relax. And here's something critical. If you grew up in an environment where you had to constantly monitor others' moods, walk on eggshells, or manage family dynamics, your home might be the first place you've ever felt truly safe. That's not something to feel guilty about. That's something to honor. Part 3, the pain of past social experiences. Here's where we need to get brutally honest. If you prefer staying home, there's a good chance your brain learned something painful about the outside world. Maybe you were excluded in school. Maybe you were laughed at when you shared something vulnerable. Maybe you were the weird kid, the too quiet one, the person others forgot to invite. Maybe you tried to fit in, and it felt like performing a role that never quite fit. Your brain remembers all of this, not as conscious memories necessarily, but as emotional data. And it drew a conclusion: staying home hurts less than risking rejection. This is called avoidance learning, and it's one of the most powerful forms of behavioral conditioning. Here's the thing most people don't understand: avoidance learning isn't conscious. You're not actively choosing to be afraid. Your brain is making a risk assessment based on past data, and it's prioritizing your emotional safety. It's trying to protect you. The problem is, your brain can't tell the difference between actual danger and perceived social threat. It treats potential embarrassment the same way it treats physical danger, so it keeps you home, where it knows you're safe. But, and this is crucial, just because your brain learned this doesn't mean it's accurate. Your past doesn't have to dictate your future. You can teach your brain new data, but you have to do it intentionally. Part 4: The Cultural Lie About Extroversion. Let's talk about something that might make you angry. Society has a massive bias toward extroversion, and it's been gaslighting you your entire life. From childhood, we're taught that being social is good, being outgoing is success, being the life of the party is admirable. Quiet kids are told to come out of their shell. Introverts are labeled as aloof or unfriendly. People who love staying home are called boring or antisocial. This is complete psychological nonsense. There is no moral superiority in extroversion. There is no inherent value in constant social engagement. The idea that you should want to go out more is a cultural construct, not a psychological truth. Research actually shows that introverts and people who prefer solitude often have deeper relationships, higher self-awareness, and better emotional regulation. They're not avoiding life. They're engaging with it on their own terms. The problem is, we've been sold a one-size-fits-all model of the good life that prioritizes quantity of social interaction over quality. We're told that success means having a packed social calendar, a huge friend group, and constant plans. But here's what psychology actually says: the number of social interactions you have has almost no correlation with life satisfaction. What matters is the quality of connection, the authenticity of relationships, and whether your social life aligns with your actual needs, not society's expectations. If you're someone who has too deep friendships and prefers quiet weekends at home, you're not missing out. You're living according to your design. Part 5: Dopamine versus serotonin. Understanding what you actually need. Here's a neuroscience concept that will completely change how you understand yourself. Dopamine versus serotonin. Going out typically offers dopamine hits: excitement, novelty, stimulation, validation, quick rewards. It's the neurochemical of wanting and seeking. It feels good in the moment, but it's also volatile and often leaves you feeling depleted afterward. Staying home offers something different: serotonin and oxytocin. These are the neurochemicals of contentment, safety, and stability. They don't create the high of dopamine, but they create something arguably more valuable: sustained well-being. People who love staying home aren't necessarily avoiding excitement. They're prioritizing a different kind of fulfillment. They're choosing calm over chaos, depth over distraction, being overdoing. This is why you can have an objectively boring weekend, reading, cooking, watching movies, and feel more restored than after a weekend packed with social events. Your brain isn't wired for constant dopamine spikes. It's wired for equilibrium. The problem comes when society tells you that the dopamine pathway is superior, that you're missing out if you're not constantly seeking new experiences, new people, new stimulation. But psychology shows that chronic dopamine seeking actually leads to burnout, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. What you're doing by staying home isn't avoidance, it's nervous system regulation. You're giving your brain what it actually needs to function optimally. Part 6: Recognizing healthy solitude versus unhealthy isolation. Now here's where we need to get uncomfortably honest with ourselves. Because while everything I've said so far validates staying home, there's a critical line we need to discuss: the difference between restorative solitude and destructive isolation. Healthy solitude looks like this. You stay home because it genuinely restores you. You feel clear-headed, peaceful, and recharged. You engage in activities you enjoy. You maintain some level of connection with others, even if it's minimal. You're choosing solitude from a place of self-care, not fear. Unhealthy isolation looks like this. You stay home because you're afraid of judgment, rejection, or failure. You avoid all social contact, even when part of you wants connection. You spend hours scrolling social media, comparing yourself to others, feeling increasingly lonely but unable to reach out. You're choosing isolation from a place of fear, not preference. The honest question you need to ask yourself is, am I staying home because it serves me, or because I'm running from something? If you're canceling plans because you genuinely need rest, that's self-care. If you're canceling because you're anxious about how you'll be perceived, that's avoidance. If you spend your alone time doing things that fulfill you, creating, learning, resting, that's healthy. If you spend it numbing out, feeling guilty, and wishing you were different, that's a sign something needs to change. Here's the hard truth. Your brain can't heal in the same environment that hurt it. If past social experiences taught you that the world isn't safe, staying home will keep you comfortable, but it won't teach your brain new information. You have to give it new experiences to update its threat assessment. This doesn't mean forcing yourself to become extroverted. It means taking small, intentional steps to challenge the belief that all social situations are dangerous. Part 7. The hidden cost of chronic avoidance. Let me tell you something that might sting a little. Every time you avoid something because of anxiety, you make the anxiety stronger. This is one of the most well-established findings in psychology. Avoidance reinforces the brain's belief that the thing you're avoiding is genuinely dangerous. So the next time you face that situation, the anxiety is even stronger, which makes you want to avoid it even more. It's a vicious cycle. If you consistently avoid social situations, your brain learns. Social situations are threats. We must stay away. And the zone of what feels safe gets smaller and smaller. Eventually, even small things, a phone call, a text conversation, running into someone at the store, can feel overwhelming. Not because you're broken, but because your brain's threat detection system has become overly sensitive from lack of exposure. The antidote isn't to throw yourself into situations that terrify you. It's to practice gradual exposure, small, manageable steps that teach your brain. I can handle this. This isn't as dangerous as I thought. Maybe that's responding to one text instead of ghosting everyone. Maybe it's taking a walk in a public space. Maybe it's having a 5-minute conversation instead of avoiding all interaction. Every time you do something slightly uncomfortable and survive it, you're literally rewiring your brain. You're building new neural pathways that say, I'm capable, I'm safe, I can do hard things. Part 8. The power of selective socializing. Here's something liberating. You don't have to be social with everyone. You don't owe anyone your energy. You can be highly selective about who you let into your space. One of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking that being more social means saying yes to everything. That's a recipe for burnout. True social wellness means knowing your limits and choosing quality over quantity. Maybe you're not someone who thrives in big groups. That's okay. Find 1 or 2 people who genuinely get you and invest there. Maybe you hate small talk, but love deep conversations. That's okay. Seek out environments where depth is valued. Maybe you need 3 days of solitude after 1 day of socializing. That's okay. Build your life around your actual rhythm, not someone else's. The goal isn't to become someone you're not. It's to create a life where your need for solitude and your need for connection can coexist without guilt. Part 9. Reframing. Staying home as a strength. Let's flip the script entirely. What if staying home isn't a flaw to fix, but a strength to leverage? People who love being alone are often more self-aware, better at self-regulation, more creative, better listeners, more thoughtful in their communication, less influenced by groupthink, more comfortable with silence, better at deep work and focus. These aren't weaknesses. These are skills that the world desperately needs. The problem isn't that you like staying home. The problem is that you've been taught to see it as something wrong with you. What if instead of asking, "Why can't I be more outgoing?" you asked, "How can I build a life that honors my need for solitude while still creating meaningful connection?" That's a completely different question, and it leads to completely different answers. If this video is resonating with you right now, do me a favor. Hit that like button because it tells me you want more psychology content that actually gets it. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe now, because in my next video, I'm going to expose the 8 psychological consequences of being too nice that nobody talks about. It's going to completely change how you see yourself and your relationships. And here's the thing. This channel isn't about surface-level advice. It's about understanding the real psychological patterns running your life so you can make conscious choices instead of just reacting. If that's what you're looking for, you're in the right place. Drop a comment below and tell me. Are you someone who loves staying home? Or are you someone who can't stand being alone? I read every single comment, and I want to hear your story. Part 10, the attachment theory connection. Now we're going deeper. Let's talk about something most people have never connected to their preference for staying home. Attachment theory. Attachment theory, developed by psychologist John Bowlby, explains how your early relationships with caregivers shaped your nervous system's approach to connection and safety. If you had secure attachment, caregivers who were consistently responsive, attuned, and safe, you likely feel comfortable both with closeness and with solitude. You can go out, connect deeply, and then return home to recharge without anxiety. But if you had insecure attachment, caregivers who were inconsistent, dismissive, or overwhelming, your nervous system learned that people are unpredictable. Connection became associated with potential pain. There are 3 types of insecure attachment, and each relates to staying home differently. Anxious attachment. You crave connection, but fear rejection. You might avoid going out because you're terrified of being judged, left out, or not measuring up. When you do go out, you're hyper-focused on whether people like you, which is exhausting. Home feels safer because there's no one to reject you. Avoidant attachment. You've learned that depending on others leads to disappointment, so you've become self-reliant to an extreme. You stay home not just because you enjoy it, but because closeness feels threatening. You've built walls so high that even healthy connection feels uncomfortable. Disorganized attachment. You want connection, but also fear it. You might cancel plans because part of you desperately wants to go, but another part panics at the vulnerability. You feel stuck between loneliness and the terror of being truly seen. Here's why this matters. If your preference for staying home is rooted in attachment wounds, simply forcing yourself to go out won't fix it. You need to heal the underlying belief that connection is dangerous. This might mean therapy. It might mean slowly building trust with one safe person. It might mean learning to tolerate the discomfort of being known. Part 11, the role of sensory processing sensitivity. Let's talk about something that affects 15 to 20% of the population, but is rarely discussed. Sensory processing sensitivity, also known as being a highly sensitive person. HSP. If you're an HSP, your nervous system processes sensory information more deeply than average. You're more affected by loud noises, bright lights, strong smells, crowded spaces, other people's emotions, subtle changes in environment. This isn't a disorder, it's a trait, but it means that what feels mildly stimulating to others can feel completely overwhelming to you. Going to a restaurant isn't just about the food. It's managing the noise level, the music, the conversations around you, the lighting, the temperature, the server's energy, the other diners' moods. By the time you finish eating, you're exhausted, not from the socializing, but from the sensory overload. Home, on the other hand, is predictable. You control the lighting, the noise, the temperature, the stimulation. Your nervous system can finally stop being on high alert. If this describes you, staying home isn't antisocial. It's nervous system management, and it's completely valid. The key is learning to identify your sensory thresholds and communicate them. Maybe you can't do a loud bar, but you can do a quiet coffee shop. Maybe you can't do a full day out, but you can do 2 hours. Maybe you need a day of complete silence after any social event. Knowing your limits isn't weakness, it's self-awareness. Part 12, the Internet Age and Pseudo-Connection. Here's something we need to address. The Internet has fundamentally changed what staying home means. 30 years ago, staying home meant genuine isolation. Today, you can stay home and be more connected than ever. Texting, video, calling, social media, online communities, streaming content. This creates a strange paradox. You can feel socially engaged without ever leaving your house. For many people, this is actually ideal. You get connection on your terms, without the exhaustion of physical proximity. But here's the psychological catch. Digital connection and in-person connection activate different parts of your brain. In-person connection involves mirror neurons, which create empathy through physical presence. Oxytocin release from eye contact, touch, shared physical space. Vagal tone regulation. Your nervous system co-regulates with another person's. Digital connection doesn't provide these. It can satisfy your need for information exchange and even emotional support, but it can't replace the nervous system regulation that comes from safe physical presence. This means that if you're only connecting digitally, you might feel connected, but still somehow lonely. You're getting mental connection without somatic, body-based connection. I'm not saying you need to become a social butterfly. I'm saying that occasional in-person connection, even brief, even with just one person, serves a biological need that screens can't fulfill. The question is, are you staying home because you're getting your connection needs met digitally, or are you using digital connection as a substitute because in-person feels too scary? Part 13, the pandemic effect. We can't talk about staying home without addressing the elephant in the room, the COVID-19 pandemic. For millions of people, staying home went from preference to requirement, and something interesting happened psychologically. For introverts and homebodies, the pandemic was initially almost a relief. Finally, society validated what you had always known. Home is safe, going out is risky, solitude is responsible. But then the months stretched on, and what started as preference became habit, became fear. Many people developed what psychologists call re-entry anxiety, the fear of returning to normal social functioning after prolonged isolation. Even as the world reopened, the thought of going back out felt overwhelming. If this is you, understand this. Your nervous system adapted to a specific environment. It learned new patterns, and now it has to relearn that the world isn't as dangerous as it felt during lockdown. This isn't weakness. This is your brain doing exactly what it's designed to do. Learn from environment and adjust accordingly. But here's the hard part. If you don't intentionally practice re-engaging with the world, your comfort zone will keep shrinking. The pandemic gave you permission to stay home. Now, you have to give yourself permission to venture back out, slowly, gently, but intentionally. Part 14, the economics of staying home. Let's talk about something practical that nobody mentions. Staying home is often a financial decision disguised as a social preference. Going out costs money. Restaurants, bars, concerts, movies, travel. It all adds up. If you're on a tight budget, staying home isn't just comfortable, it's financially smart. But here's where it gets psychologically complicated. If you're staying home primarily because of money, but telling yourself it's because you're introverted, you're creating a false narrative about who you are. This matters because it affects your self-concept. You might think, I'm just not a social person, when the truth is, I can't afford the lifestyle my friends have. There's no shame in this. But there is power in honesty. If money is the real issue, then the solution isn't forcing yourself to be more extroverted. It's finding low cost or free ways to connect. Walks, home dinners, parks, free events. But if you're using money as an excuse to avoid social situations you can actually afford, that's different. That's avoidance with a convenient justification. Be honest with yourself. What's really keeping you home? Part 15. The creativity. A connection. Here's something beautiful. Many of the world's greatest artists, writers, thinkers, and creators were homebodies. Emily Dickinson rarely left her house. Marcel Proust wrote from bed. Isaac Newton did his best work in isolation. Nikola Tesla was famously reclusive. Why? Because creativity requires solitude. It requires uninterrupted time, deep focus, and freedom from social performance. If you're someone who loves staying home, there's a good chance you're also someone with a rich inner world. You might be a deep thinker, a creative person, someone who processes life through reflection, someone who needs mental space to generate ideas. The extroverted world often dismisses this as doing nothing. But you're not doing nothing. You're processing, creating, imagining, connecting dots that others miss. Some of the most valuable contributions to human culture have come from people who needed vast amounts of alone time to think. So if you're staying home to write, create, learn, or simply think deeply, don't let anyone make you feel like that's less valuable than going to a party. Part 16. The relationship impact. Let's get real about how your preference for staying home affects your relationships, romantic, familial, and friendship. If you're in a relationship with someone more extroverted, this can create real tension. They want to go out. You want to stay in. They feel rejected when you decline plans. You feel pressured when they push. Here's what most couples get wrong. They try to change each other instead of honoring the difference. The solution isn't for you to become extroverted or for them to become a homebody. It's to communicate your actual needs without judgment. Find compromise that honors both preferences. Give each other permission to have separate social lives. Maybe they go out with friends while you stay home. Maybe you join for 1 hour, then leave early. Maybe you alternate. One weekend their way, one weekend yours. The key is stopping the narrative that one of you is wrong. With friendships, it's similar. If your friends don't understand your need for solitude, they might take it personally. They might stop inviting you. They might think you don't value them. Your job is to communicate clearly. I love you and value our friendship. I also need significant alone time to function. This isn't about you. Real friends will understand. The ones who can't respect your needs weren't your people anyway. Part 17. The spiritual dimension. Here's something we rarely discuss in psychology. For many people, staying home is a spiritual practice. Solitude has been valued by mystics, monks, and spiritual seekers for millennia. It's in silence and stillness that many people connect with something larger than themselves, hear their own inner wisdom, process life's deeper questions, experience presence and peace. If you're someone who stays home to meditate, pray, reflect, or simply be still, you're participating in an ancient tradition. The modern world is allergic to silence. We fill every moment with noise, distraction, productivity. But some of the most profound human experiences require the opposite. Stillness, solitude, silence. If this is why you stay home, honor it. Don't let a productivity-obsessed, extroversion-worshipping culture convince you that contemplation is worthless. Part 18. The physical health factor. Let's talk about something often overlooked: chronic illness, disability, and physical health conditions. For some people, staying home isn't primarily a psychological preference, it's a physical necessity. Chronic fatigue, autoimmune conditions, chronic pain, mobility issues, sensory disorders. These all make going out significantly harder than it is for able-bodied people. And here's the cruel part. Society often judges you as lazy or antisocial without knowing what you're dealing with. You might look fine, but internally you're managing pain, exhaustion, or symptoms that others can't see. Going out might cost you 3 days of recovery. Staying home isn't avoidance, it's energy management. If this is your reality, please know. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't have to prove your limitations. You don't have to push yourself beyond your capacity to seem normal. Your worth isn't determined by how social you are or how much you can do. Part 19. The environmental overwhelm. Let's discuss something increasingly relevant: environmental sensitivity and eco-anxiety. Some people stay home because the world outside feels chaotic, overwhelming, and even threatening. And honestly, they're not wrong. Traffic, pollution, noise, crowds, aggressive drivers, litter, the constant bombardment of advertising. Modern environments are designed for productivity, not human well-being. If you are someone who feels frazzled by the sensory chaos of urban life, staying home isn't avoidance, it's self-preservation. Add to this the growing awareness of climate change, social injustice, political instability, and you have what psychologists call eco-anxiety or existential overwhelm. For sensitive people, carrying awareness of the world's problems while trying to function normally can feel impossible. Home becomes a sanctuary not just from social demands, but from the weight of a world that feels broken. If this resonates, know that you're not alone. More people than ever are experiencing this. The solution isn't to pretend everything is fine. It's to limit news consumption, engage in meaningful action that feels manageable, connect with others who share your values, create pockets of beauty and meaning in your immediate environment. You can care about the world without drowning in its pain. Part 20. The productivity trap. Here's a paradox. Many people who love staying home are actually workaholics. You're not avoiding the world, you're avoiding distraction. You stay home because you're deeply focused on work, projects, goals, learning. This can be positive if you're genuinely passionate about what you're doing, but it can also be a trap. If you're using productivity as a justification for isolation, ask yourself, am I avoiding rest by always staying busy? Am I using work to avoid dealing with emotions or relationships? Do I feel guilty when I'm not productive? Have I lost the ability to simply be without doing? Work can be just as much an avoidance mechanism as Netflix or scrolling social media. It just looks more respectable. True well-being requires balance, periods of focus and periods of rest, time alone, and time in connection, doing and being. Part 21, Practical Strategies for Balance. Okay, let's get practical. If you've realized you want to find more balance between staying home and engaging with the world, here are evidence-based strategies. 1. The 15-minute rule. When you feel resistant to going out, commit to just 15 minutes. Go for a walk, visit a coffee shop, call a friend. Often, the anticipation is worse than the reality. And if after 15 minutes you're still miserable, give yourself permission to go home. 2. Schedule reset days. If you know you have social obligations coming up, schedule a full day afterward with nothing planned. This removes the fear of being depleted with no recovery time. 3. Find third places. Third places are locations that aren't home or work. A library, coffee shop, park, bookstore. They offer gentle human presence without the pressure of direct interaction. This can ease you back into tolerating public spaces. 4. Practice micro-connections. You don't need deep, hours-long hangouts to maintain relationships. A 5-minute phone call, a thoughtful text, a brief coffee can be enough. Give yourself permission to connect in small doses. 5. Reframe canceled plans. Instead of canceling, try adjusting. Can't do dinner? Suggest a 30-minute walk instead. Can't do the party? Meet for coffee beforehand. You're not all or nothing. 6. The energy audit. Keep track of what actually drains you versus what you fear will drain you. You might discover that certain social situations are easier than you think, while others, even small ones, are genuinely exhausting. Use data, not assumptions. 7. Build your re-entry toolkit. After social events, have a ritual that helps you transition back to your comfort zone, a specific playlist, a comfort meal, a favorite show, a journaling session. This signals to your nervous system, we're safe again. So here's the truth we've been building toward. You're not broken for loving to stay home, but you're also not serving yourself if you're using home as a permanent hiding place from a world that hurt you. The goal isn't to become someone you're not. It's to heal the parts of you that are afraid, honor the parts that genuinely need solitude, and slowly, carefully teach your nervous system that connection, on your terms, can be safe. You get to design a life that works for you. Not your extroverted friend, not society's expectations, not what looks good on social media. You. Maybe that's a life with one deep friendship and lots of alone time. Maybe it's a life where you go out once a week and stay home the rest. Maybe it's a life where you work from home, connect digitally, and only see people in person when it truly matters. There's no wrong answer. There's only what's true for you. But please, be honest with yourself. Are you choosing this life consciously, or are you running from something? Because there's a massive difference between solitude that restores you and isolation that slowly shrinks your world. If this video helped you understand yourself better, I need you to do 3 things. First, smash that like button so I know you want more deep psychology content like this. Second, subscribe and turn on notifications because next week's video is going to wreck you in the best way. I'm exposing the 8 psychological consequences of being too nice that nobody warns you about. If you're a people pleaser, this will change your life. Third, comment below and tell me, what's one thing you do at home that restores you? I want to hear your story. Remember, the people who judge you for staying home don't understand your nervous system, your history, your needs, or your design. You don't owe them an explanation. You owe yourself honesty, compassion, and the courage to build a life that actually fits who you are. I'll see you in the next video.